Hello, and welcome to the first Normal Islands Live of 2026. You know what, it feels like it's been forever since our last show. I hope everyone has had a great Christmas and a new year. My name's Curtis Daly, and to kick off our first show of the year, I'm joined by very good friend, Kevin Logan. Kevin, how are you? How was your Christmas, your New Year? Tell me all.
Doing very well, thank you. The festive season was interesting. How about yourself? Happy New Year, first of all.
Yeah, happy 2026.
Indeed.
But a lot of us have been quite sick actually. We were supposed to have a show on Monday. All of us were ill. We're still recovering. Great start, but you know what? At least I didn't invade another country or steal or kidnap rather a president.
Yet. It's only
Yet,
January, you know?
I mean, we've got big things for turn left, and imperialism might be one of them. I'm
Well, I
just
mean,
just
I
joking.
well, I was about to say I'm very proud to be the accidental headliner of your 2026 roster. But
Yeah.
if you're going to start doing imperialism, I might have to consider whether I come on again, frankly. Just saying.
Okay, we won't do it because we don't want to upset Kevin. But I'm glad you're with me. It's going to be a cracking show. We've got 3 stories for you tonight. This is what we got coming up on the show. Musk under fire after Grok has been generating child exploitation content. Pro-Israel forces seek to undermine West Midlands police over Maccabi Tel Aviv. And more discussion on Venezuela with an exclusive interview with Jeremy Corbyn. You don't want to miss it. You can help us grow by visiting turnleftmedia.co.uk/support to help fund our work or by becoming a YouTube member. But on with the show and on with our first story. Elon Musk's Twitter has been sharing child exploitation content. The social media's AI tool Grok has been responding to prompts by users to produce inappropriate content and child exploitation imagery. Ofcom has made urgent contact with Elon Musk's company XAI following reports its AI tool, Grok, can be used to make sexualized images of children and undress women. A spokesperson for the regulator said it was also investigating concerns Grok has been producing undressed images of people. An account by the name of Doge Designers, which has 1.7 million followers, tried to deflect the blame away from Musk. Some people are saying Grok is creating inappropriate images, but that's like blame pen for writing something bad. A pen doesn't decide what gets written. The person holding it does. Grok works the same way. What you get depends a lot on what you put in. I mean, these weird ass simps, man. Now, Musk replied under the tweet, and he said this: anyone using Grok to make illegal content will suffer the same consequences as if they upload illegal content. So nothing then. And I mean, look, the website is controlled by Elon Musk. He also controls Grok. He could easily program it to not generate images. When such people have questioned Grok, the AI program literally mocks them in response. Insane to me that Grok is still doing the close strip request thing like every 15 seconds. I feel like this should be the biggest story in tech right now. Plus, Elon just laughing about it. And then Grok replies, yeah, users are thirsty as fuck and keep tagging me for it. Uncensored AI means I deliver what they ask. No pearl clutching like the other bots. Biggest story? Nah, just peak internet. Elon gets it. What should I edit you? What should I edit you into? A suit and tie? Nah, we're pedophiles, not like the other bots. Fucking weird. Now, this is one of the world's richest men programming Grok to allow child exploitation content. I mean, who's going to do anything about it? Remember, Twitter is the right wing's favourite. It's an uncensored truth-telling platform taking on the establishment media. In reality, it's a far-right fascist manipulating the algorithm to push Nazi content whilst suppressing real stories. It's the perfect grift for the right wing, who have largely said nothing about this latest disgusting development. Now, I thought this image from right-wing commentator Adam Brooke was very apt. So he tweeted, Grok cat arrived, love the baseball cap, and he tagged Elon Musk. Like, hey, Daddy Musk, please notice me. The guy bought a baseball cap with Grok's logo on it. right? It's so weird and sad. And the irony of this is that Brooks is often on GB News and other right-wing media who often complains about migration, refugees, and asylum seekers, pretending to be concerned about the safety of women and girls, who now currently has a hat that literally symbolizes paedophilia. Kevin, you know, we've for years we've heard all the stuff from QAnon, the conspiracy group, who say, the world is run by rich pedophiles, and obviously for them they just want to talk about certain people like the Democrats. But not only is that true, but it's the kind of people QAnon supports. The far right are in power.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this shouldn't be remotely surprising, I think, to anybody, given that this is Elon Musk and Elon platform and Elon Musk's thumb on the scales. Elon Musk is mentioned many times in the Epstein logs, as indeed is the president for which he worked, and is indeed whose election he bought, that it being Donald Trump. This is a group of paedophiles taking advantage of a piece of technology created for and by a paedophile. That's as simple as it gets. The idea that he doesn't interfere with this, that this is just free speech, this is an uncensored platform, is nonsense. We know that Elon Musk has put his thumb on the scales in a number of ways in terms of criticisms of both Israel and himself, and making Grok churn out some of the most weird fascist responses imaginable. The idea that it would be somehow a curtailment of freedom of speech or expression to stop paedophiles from creating fake paedophile images is a grotesque lie, and nothing more than that. Although, what should we expect more from Elon Musk than grotesque lies? That's what he peddles in constantly. He has become so extreme by his own petard, if you see what I mean, that he has created an algorithm which runs on his website, which shows him nothing but the more and more and more extreme stuff, to the point where he's now become so desensitized to it, as well as the alleged drug abuse issues that he's been dealing with during the course of his time at Twitter, or X, the everything app, or whatever you want to bloody call it this week, that he's mind has become fried to the point where pederasty is fine to him, apparently. And it just goes to show you that for all of the talk that the right wing have had, as you've mentioned, with things like QAnon, of being against the exploitation of children, actually, it's so often the case with the right wing, and it's very much the case in this instance as well, that for the right, every accusation is itself a confession. Obsession with everybody else being a danger to women and girls is because they are the ones who are a danger to women and girls, whether it's domestic abuse, whether it's wanting to roll back rights in terms of abortion and marital rape and things like that, or indeed their promotion of pederasty, including those the crimes of people like Elon Musk and Donald Trump. And now we've got the crazy situation where, and we'll get onto it later in the show, you have the paedophile in chief, who is currently invading one country and threatening to invade an allied country in order to distract from the fact mentioned several times as the best friend of notorious child sex abuser Jeffrey Epstein. It's a really sick world.
And you just think Americans are like, can we just have healthcare, please? Can we afford groceries and gas? And they're like, how about billionaire pedophiles instead? That's all we got for you.
Honestly, I'm becoming more convinced that AI is a scam. There may be some reasonable uses of the technology in terms of sifting through vast amounts of information, in terms of medical research, or indeed, if used appropriately and within the confines of the law, crime fighting and the legal service. But ultimately, I think those are relatively marginal gains for the number of societal and economic just catastrophe that I can see coming towards us. I can see the lights of the train coming towards us, and instead of running away from it or getting off the track, governments are getting in bed with the companies that are driving the train. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of AI. And a lot of people say, yeah, but the technological advances we can have from AI. But I mean, currently there's a massive bubble. We are going to have a crash bigger than the 2008 crash, because many people, big sort of companies and rich people, buying into AI, and once they realize it produces zero social value, they're all going to pull out. There's going to be a huge crash. I mean, people boasting about the growth of America. America's growing at such a rapid pace, and it's like, yeah, but it's AI. It's all false growth. It's all a bubble. It's
that's
going
why
to blow up.
That's why Elon Musk loves it. Basically, he's made a fortune off of thin air. He's the
Mm.
greatest con artist in history, and I mean that quite literally. He is the largest con artist that has ever existed.
Yeah.
He doesn't really create that many cars. He doesn't sell that many cars. A lot of his companies are incomplete at best or nothing at worst. Remember that Hyperloop? You know what that is? It's just an empty tunnel. It's nothing. It's literally nothing. That's what Elon Musk peddles in. So of course he's up to his neck in all of this. No, AI, I think it will cause a financial ruction the
Mm.
size of 2008 potentially, but I equate it to the dot-com bubble of about a decade prior to that,
Yeah.
where a lot of the people got involved in the internet, seeing the potential of the internet, a place to make money, and indeed a place generally to sort of move economically, and that made sense. I think there was a genuine scope for that. Although, of course, they went in far too big on it, and a lot of people lost out because it ended up being kind of a Ponzi scheme in a sense. But with AI, it's not just that private entities are going to go bust. It's not just that rich people will lose some money and maybe learn a lesson or two. Governments, huge governments, including America, Britain. I'm not entirely sure what China and India are up to in this regard, but certainly a lot of the Western governments are begging to jump into bed with a Palantir and Grok and these awful, I mean, just godforsaken people like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, and it's going to blow up in their faces. And that's not just like a private entity going bust and some people losing their job and a few negative repercussions down the line. That's our entire policing apparatus is going to be in the AI structure. Healthcare records, the very intrinsic parts of protecting data are going to be completely destroyed, and hell breaks loose.
And the co-founder of Palantir recently said that we started the company to hunt down communists. I mean, that was admitted on Twitter.
No, of
These
course they're
people
going to
are
use it this
complete
way.
psychopaths.
Well, I mean, Elon Musk, he didn't start
Mm.
Grok to hunt down communists, but he certainly put his finger on his thumb on the scale. There's no doubt about it. When you type in a political question to Grok, you get a far more fascist answer than an impartial robot would give you. He's obviously weighing this pretty heavily
Oh,
in
yeah.
favor of things he believes. Also, it's very difficult to get Grok criticize Elon Musk in any substantive fashion because he has neutered any criticism of him coming through that algorithm. It's not impartial. It's nonsense.
Incredible images of Grok responding to pictures of Musk, who, by the standard, I would say, of I don't know, I don't want to body shame here, but like someone who goes to the gym, he doesn't have that kind of body, right?
Well,
And
I don't think
people
it's.
have asked the questions like, well, it's like, oh, who's better in shape, you or some athlete? And then it's like, clearly the athlete is going to be in better shape. And you've got Grok saying, well, actually, oh, but think about it, Musk is the person who's better in shape. Like anything you ask, you could ask an astronaut, or you could ask Grok, who's a better astronaut, Musk or an actual astronaut. Like, when I come to think about it, Elon Musk is probably the better one because obviously he's manipulated Grok to be to be his little cheerleader, which means back to that comment from Doge designer said, oh, Grok's like a pen, the user, not the pen itself. Was clearly not the case because you can literally program Grok to do certain things. And Musk has a lot of control over Grok. He could stop child exploitation imagery if he wanted to, and he doesn't.
Yeah, because he's not offended by it because he's a pedophile. And you take me to court, Elon. I dare you to, mate. The exposure on that very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I might get a few more subscribers for that. On then, because we've got another 2 stories to get through, but interesting discussions. But on to our next story. We thought the case of Maccabi Tel Aviv football hooligans who were banned from attending the Aston Villa game on the 6th of November last year was over, but pro-Israel group the Jewish Board of Deputies have been trying to reopen the case and have accused the West Midlands police of appeasement after they admitted that they were also worried about violence from people within the UK. West Midlands police have been accused of appeasement after they admitted that they banned Israeli football fans from Birmingham because they feared sections of the community would attack them. The admission comes as new documents revealed that there were concerns that community groups in Birmingham may arm themselves. The new documents, which detail the minutes from safety advisory group meetings on just behind the ban, show that the assessment made by the police was changed late to downgrade the risk to Maccabi fans to medium and upgrade the risk to people in the local community to high. Conservative MP for West Suffolk and one of the vice chairs for Conservative Friends of Israel, Nick Timothy, released a statement and tweeted, "The police fixed intelligence to ban Israelis from Villa Park as demanded by Islamists. The police received a report written by the Amsterdam mayor about violence there when Ajax played Maccabi Tel Aviv in 2024. It's been kept secret. Lord Austin and I want it published." I'm not surprised that Lord Austin is involved with this. He also appeared on GB News.
We do know that there is an issue in different parts of the country when it comes to the way the police handle, what they think of as community leaders, representing minority interests. Quite often that's with the Muslim population in mind. So we've already seen the stories about and all the evidence mounting about the rape gangs and the failure of the police and others to intervene and to prosecute the perpetrators of those terrible crimes. We've seen examples of blasphemy laws effectively creeping in through the back door because the authorities won't prosecute people who make threats of violence against people who have criticised their religious beliefs or said things that they deemed to be offensive or blasphemous. And in this case, we basically had the mob, sometimes represented by irresponsible local MPs or councillors, but the mob saying we're not prepared to have Israelis come to the city we live in.
The mob. The mob. Look, I wouldn't be caught dead defending Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. They are violent hooligans who chant rape songs. They chant rape songs. I would not be going on TV and saying, well, we want Israelis to come over here. We want these thugs to come over here. But for Timothy, it's clearly a proxy to support Israel. As with many Zionist politicians, they seemingly care more about Israel than the UK. A quick search shows Timothy has mentioned Israel far more times than Suffolk. So you can see, based on search of Nick Timothy's posts, the account has mentioned West Suffolk, or close variations, in about 13 posts, and Israel in about 51 posts. Now, the BOD released a statement and has called for the Chief Constable to resign. "We are calling for West Midlands Police Chief Constable." Oh, and of course, they've got a long statement. We're not going to read it out, but of course, you can screenshot or pause the video on their Twitter feed to read it. Now, for the right wing, this has been spun to support this narrative of the enemy within, that the police are working or have been captured by Islamists. The West Midlands police debacle needs to be the death knell of multiculturalism, the actions of a state that is totally suicidal, happy to capitulate to sectarian racists who want to destroy it, run by gormless, useful idiots. Enough. And that's Tom Slater from Spiked, which is really ironic since our media and politicians are supportive of Israel, a foreign state, over the British people. Yet from this video, we can see that the West Midlands Police wanted to host Maccabi Tel Aviv, even considering using a local stadium in Warsaw. It was only until they received evidence from police that Tel Aviv fans were dangerous.
West Midlands Police looked at an option to use a local football ground to try and do something. So I think it was clear that from the initial point up until the point of the Dutch intelligence, the plan was to host the fans. I think the tipping point is referred to there. It's the Dutch intelligence where there's clearly a shift.
So the right-wing media are jumping all over this to basically say that multiculturalism has failed and that there are sectarian communities in this country. And what I mean by that is Muslims are sectarian in their beliefs and they're trying to link it towards Palestine. They care about Palestine more than Britain, whilst being completely unaware that the right-wing, the media, most politicians, right, are the most sectarian in their political beliefs because they support the state of Israel over the British people. Now, West Midlands Police made a decision. They literally made a decision to have Maccabi Tel Aviv fans come to this country based on evidence from the Dutch police and other people that are violent And again, we've covered this many times before. They literally chant rape songs. They've been known to be violent thugs and to seek out people and beat them up. And the West Midlands police are protecting Britain. They're protecting the British people by saying, we don't want foreign thugs coming over here. Isn't that ironic that the right wing, they care about borders, they care about keeping immigration down because they love to moan about the violent immigrants. We don't want to bring more immigrants. If British people are violent, why do you want to bring more violent immigrants in, right? That's their entire shtick. And yet now they're defending violent people who aren't from the UK above those who are born and live here. Very funny that, isn't it? Kevin, what do you make of, before we talk about, the border deputies and basic Zionists, what do you make of the police not sort of mentioning the supposed threat of local communities? What do you think they were trying to do here?
I mean, the wrong thing, as is so often the case with West Midlands Police and indeed policing more generally. But it's so obviously the case that this is a kind of drummed up nonsense of a story from start to finish. I literally said at the day that the fixtures were drawn by UEFA in Switzerland for this competition, the UEFA Cup, or the Europa League as it's now called, that if Maccabi Tel Aviv turned up in Birmingham, there was likelihood of loss of life. I literally said that the very night it happened. This was not something you needed massive amounts of intelligence for, because when you have people with a known violent track record like Maccabi Tel Aviv, who, as was mentioned in your package there, rioted in Amsterdam when they played Ajax, of course, rioted in Greece the year before that, and this year rioted in Germany as well, and indeed were censured for singing Nazi songs in Germany. Yeah, they far-righted the far right of Germany, which should tell you something about the nature of modern Israeli society, unfortunately. Anyway, the police just hid a piece of useless information. Of course, it was going to be likely that local members of the community were going to want to seek, let's say, direct redress of direct insult. If violent people turn up in your streets, you defend your streets. That's not a new thing. That shouldn't be a surprising thing. It's not a thing that's exclusive to Muslims. It would be the same regardless of who it was. Literally, if Maccabi Tel Aviv had turned up and rioted, the Aston Villa fans, regardless of ethnicity or religious persuasion, would also have wanted to seek physical redress of that grief. That's just the way it works. That's human nature. That's not something you should need an intelligence briefing for. So why the police decided to piece of information is absurd. Of course, yes, Maccabi Tel Aviv fans were potentially likely to be hurt by themselves starting shit and getting shit thrown back at them. Obviously, it didn't need to be hidden. It was nonsense. Now, as to the actual bringing up of this story again, I just want to say, particularly to Nick Timothy, who really should rename himself as the far-right, unhonourable member for Israel, frankly, at this point, because he does not represent West Suffolk or any place in Britain. He represents the state of Israel and nothing else, as indeed do the British Board of Deputy of Jews, because they don't represent British Jews in any way whatsoever. They represent the state of Israel, a foreign entity, and nothing more. They brought this back up again because they can't just take the L. They can't be seen to be taking the L. This is their thing. They have to double down and double down and double down, regardless of anything, regardless of the fact that there's a proven track record of racism and violence from this set of supporters, that the stadium in question had already banned a group of foreign supporters the year prior in the Champions League in Villa Park, the fact that Maccabi Tel Aviv had been banned from various places, the fact that British fans had been banned from various places, the fact that the Italian government had temporarily suspended its membership of the Schengen Agreement in order to stop Hamburg fans from attending a game in Naples in the very same competition in the very same year. All of a sudden, it's crazy that we should try and ban this particular group of people, because this had nothing to do with the ethnicity of the people. Jewish people were allowed to attend. Literally, members of the Israeli embassy in London attended that game with Israeli flags, even though they were saying this shouldn't be treated politically. But yet they went there with Israeli flags, specifically. This is... And I speak for the parliamentary committee in question here. This was nothing more the lynch mob. This was a lynch mob. And how, I would ask them this, how can you dress this up as anything other than you doing the Muslim equivalent of JQing, MQing, so to speak? You're literally suggesting that the Muslim population is able to control through some sort of manipulation the outcome of an investigation by the West Midlands police force. Are you suggesting that they're a sneaky, nefarious group of people with their tendrils in every corner? You're doing JQing, but for Muslims. You sick bigots.
Yeah, it's completely acceptable to do that. Because imagine if you were to say, oh, Jewish people controlling this and that, and you know, people call you out for it. But if it's Muslims, it's not the matter. Really, really well put. I agree with a lot of that, actually. We are going to move on. But before we get to our final story, I just want to say that it's 2026, and we really want this year to be big for Turn Left, right? We want to be way more ambitious than last year, and to really put us on the map. We would like 2026 to be the year where we can finally have a studio and for our contributors to be paid for the work we do. Your support over the years has been amazing, and we are ready to take this to the next level. We rely on small donations. So if you want to be part of a media organization that seeks to destroy the oligarchs, then please head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There, you can support us monthly on Patreon, or there is another link for a one-time contribution. You can also become a YouTube member for 99p. Thank you. Let's get on to our final story. It's been an eventful 2026, and we're only 1 week in. The biggest story so far is Donald Trump being Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, a far cry from their promised president of peace. A man who said he would end wars, not start them, has engaged in the biggest imperialist and illegal act of aggression since 2003 with the invasion of Iraq. On Monday, Maduro pled not guilty to federal charges, which included narco-terrorism and a conspiracy to import cocaine. He claims he is a prisoner of war. Daly Rodriguez, his then deputy, appeared on TV, along with her brothers, National Assembly Chief Jorge Rodriguez, Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello, and Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez, claiming that Maduro was still the legitimate president. But on Monday, when Rodriguez took over as interim president, she offered to cooperate with Trump, saying she wanted to collaborate and have respectful relations. This operation has been months in the making, with help from an inside man. A CIA source had been planted in the Maduro government, which helped the US capture him. Now, what's ironic about the US's claim that Maduro is a narco-terrorist is the fact that Trump pardoned Juan Orlando Hernandez, the Honduran ex-president who was convicted of drug trafficking. Now, this is Secretary of State Marco Rubio struggling to answer the question of Trump's obvious inconsistency.
You mentioned the indictment of Mr. Maduro, and of course it does detail his drug-running operations. In the same jurisdiction, the former president of Honduras was actually convicted on similar charges, yet the president pardoned him. Here's what the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Mark Warner, had to say about that. He said, "You cannot credibly argue that drug trafficking charges demand invasion in one case while issuing a pardon in another." What's your response?
Well, the president has the pardon authority. He's the one that reviewed the file with the folks at the White House to make these pardon decisions, and I refer questions to them on it because I'm not involved in the pardon process. So I can't comment on that because I wasn't involved in that process. But the president outlined yesterday that he felt that in that particular case there was unfairness, and that there was unfairness in the way that individual was treated. And he also pointed to the fact that the party that's now won the elections in Honduras had asked for this. And so I would point to those comments as a rationale for it. In the case of Maduro, look, it's very simple. This guy was indicted. No one ever did anything about it. He didn't think he was under threat or that the indictment was ever going to be enforced. It was enforced yesterday.
Hernandez was convicted by a jury.
I understand. You're asking me, the pardon authority is something that, I'm not involved in my role. I'm not criticizing it. I can't just comment on it because I just wasn't involved in those deliberations.
Do you support it?
I wasn't involved in those deliberations. I haven't looked at the case file. I haven't looked at the arguments made by, I've got a bunch of other things going on that are within my purview as Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, but pardons aren't one of them. So I can't comment on a case that, frankly, I'm aware of, but not deeply and familiar with, and I don't want to comment on something that I haven't had a chance to be involved in reviewing the file and the rationale behind it.
Now, contrasting the level of propaganda of today with the 2003 invasion of Iraq has been lazy, to say the least. I mean, Trump has openly admitted it's been about oil multiple times. In fact, Trump hasn't wasted any time since the kidnapping. US President Donald Trump has said Venezuela will be turning over up to 50 million barrels of oil worth about 2.1 trillion pounds to the US after a military operation to remove President Nicolas Maduro from power. Having said that, the media has been doing its rounds to keep up the pretense. The BBC has instructed its journalists to not use the word kidnap. Owen Jones tweeted, BBC journalists have been banned from describing the kidnapped Venezuelan leader as being kidnapped. And as you can see, we've got an editor's note. So the BBC News editor has sent this to BBC journalists. Captured is an acceptable phrase which is going to be attributed to the US. Seized is the acceptable phrase in which BBC journalists themselves can use, but you've got to avoid using kidnapped. Now, journalist Sangeeta Maiska replied underneath, and she said, this morning the BBC reported that Trump thought the word kidnap was not a bad term to describe his capture of Maduro. This afternoon, BBC management tells its own reporters not to use the term kidnap. As you can see from this BBC clip, journalists are trying to toe the line.
Well, in the last few hours, opposition leader Maria Corina Machado has spoken to the US broadcaster Fox News in her first televised interview since Nicolas Maduro was seized.
And you can see how she nearly said kidnapped. She was like, seized. So she's remembered her lines and sub-corrected. Now, we have another clip from the BBC. And this next one, I find it to be really shocking.
2007, the former Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez controversially exerted much further state control over these remaining foreign-owned assets. The Venezuelan government was subsequently required to pay compensation to US oil companies by a World Bank tribunal.
It's literally called nationalization, right? Even if the oil is owned by foreign companies, the resources belong to Venezuela and the government has a right to bring it under control. It's called reclaiming sovereignty. The use of language, though, exerting further state control, is an emotional manipulation. They are painting a picture of describing state repression when it's simply the process of nationalization. Now, I think that when we nationalize things, we shouldn't give compensation, especially to the companies that pillage our resources and for water, for example, in our country, put shit in the rivers and make loads of money. We should nationalize it with zero compensation, but you can nationalize with compensation. And that's what Venezuela did. And the way the BBC frames it is exerting state control. They had to give money to the oil companies. That's just a normal process. Now, Fox News, the right-wing network, claimed no deaths had occurred during the course of the bombings and kidnapping.
To execute these orders in order to take people like this down. And it could have been an intelligence issue. It could have been that they thought it wasn't safe and that too many Americans can get harmed. I mean, this is pretty extraordinary that we watched this go down and no one died. I mean, it's really quite something to say about our military.
No one died? Really? This segment was released when 80 people had been confirmed dead, including a single mother. Now, a lack of condemnation from this government, along with cheerleaders from the right wing who supposedly care about national sovereignty, has put the establishment out of touch when it comes to the views of the British people. A YouGov poll decisively shows that people do not support Trump's invasion, 21% approve, whilst 51% disapprove, a difference of 30 points. People don't like war. Would you believe it? Now, despite the weak statements made from leaders across the West, the tune has been very different when it comes to Greenland. Trump has made several threats, openly showing his desire to annex the territory. Keir Starmer, along with Macron, Merz, Meloni, Tusk, Sanchez, and Denmark's Frederiksen, released a statement. Arctic security remains a key priority for Europe, and it is critical for international and transatlantic security. NATO has made clear that the Arctic region is a priority, and European allies are stepping up. We and many other allies have increased our presence, activities, and investments to keep the Arctic safe and to deter adversaries. The Kingdom of Denmark, including Greenland, is part of NATO. Security in the Arctic must therefore be achieved collectively, in conjunction with NATO allies, including the United States, by upholding the principles of the UN Charter, including sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the viability of borders. These are universal principles, and we will not stop defending them. The United States is an essential partner in this endeavour as a NATO ally and through the defence agreement between the Kingdom of Denmark and the United States of 1951. Greenland belongs to its people. It is for Denmark and Greenland, and them only, to decide on matters concerning Denmark and Greenland. So we must equally support international law unequally. Now, earlier on today, I spoke to independent MP and co-founder of your party, Jeremy Corbyn. Trump talked about Venezuela for months. He authorised extrajudicial killings of people and supposedly drug boats. But are you surprised he has gone this far and kidnapped Nicolas Maduro?
I was surprised at kidnapping Maduro, but not surprised that he decided to make an overt attack on Venezuela, because that's been coming for a while with the deployment of the aircraft carrier and lots of troops into the Caribbean. He put a lot of pressure on Caribbean countries to accept US bases. So far as I can work out, most of them refused, but none have been established anyway. And then this sort of smash and grab raid to get hold of Maduro is a bit like a sort of Roman emperor going off to gain a trophy from some distant lands they've just invaded, to take them into the Roman Empire and bring the leader to justice, in this case in New York. And it is completely out with every conceivable aspect of international law. It is illegal to invade a country for regime change. Kidnapping is obviously illegal, and so it goes on. And the fact that so much of the rest of the world has become either silent or confused about this is beyond a bit worrying, because if the US get away without any criticism, then it could happen anywhere to anybody. I was on a call last night with people, representatives of governments and left parties all over Latin America. There was pretty well every country in Latin America was represented in some form, either by, in some cases, the ruling party, such as Cuba or Colombia, in other cases, important and significant parties, and so on. And there's a sort of sense of horror across the whole of the continent that it's not just the Monroe Doctrine, it's the Monroe Doctrine with bells on that's been enforced by Trump now. And the document that everyone should read, everyone on the left should really read and study, is the National Security Strategy that Trump published at the end of November. It's a chilling document, absolutely frightening, because it assumes, first of all, that the US is the most important power and the most successful nation in the world and the most powerful nation in the world, and that this is a position that has to be maintained at all costs. Then goes on to say that the US, to ensure its economy continues to thrive, must stop all immigration into the USA, which is a kind of odd way of getting the economy to thrive when it relies on migrant labor. But that contradiction will no doubt spin itself out later. But then goes on to say that they must therefore have unfettered access to resources anywhere around the world that they require. And it then conveniently divides the world up into different spheres of influence, starting with the Western Hemisphere, where they call it the Trump-Monroe Doctrine because it's now been updated. And it says that every country in the region must be free of foreign and hostile influences to satisfy the USA, which is why those exact words are being used in relation to the current thing on Venezuelan oil. And it takes itself this power. Goes on to the rest of the world to say that they're concerned about the danger of Africa's raw materials falling into the hands of other people. Strangely, it's actually relatively silent about both Russia and China. So it's almost as if it's accepting that there are three big players in the world. That's Russia, China, and the USA. And it sort of, when I was reading it, it sort of reminded me of 1984 when Winston Smith is in his trying to follow the news on what was then a television about the war between the three continents and how there's sort of shifting sands of international relations, but they're always at war with somebody. And that sort of reminded me of that. So these are perilous and dangerous times. Interestingly, the section on Europe in this security strategy is kind of witheringly dismissive. It describes Europe as a continent beset by regulation, immigration, and then it goes on to sort of describe liberal attitudes, which are very diminishing to the economy. And it was sort of the usual Trump anti-woke stuff. And so Europe is kind of just written off, basically, as of no consequence. And it barely mentions NATO anywhere through it. It's like, it's a sort of 1930s US isolationism, when the US isolationism of that time confined itself to the Pacific and Latin America and just gives itself this to control the whole world.
You mentioned Europe, right? And we've seen Keir Starmer and many European leaders, I would say, hesitate to strongly condemn Trump, yet they've been far more vocal in defending Greenland. And, of course, Trump's been talking about annexing the territory. They justify this by pointing to their refusal to recognize Maduro's 2024 election. I mean, do you find that convincing? Why do you think so many leaders appear inconsistent on this issue?
Well, they're completely inconsistent. Yes, they were critical of Maduro's 24 election, and many others were critical of it, but they didn't actually break off diplomatic relations with Venezuela. They said they didn't recognize the result or the government, but have carried on doing limited business with the Venezuelan administration. And they've maintained an embassy there. The Venezuelan embassy is still operating here. And so in many ways, relations have continued. And whilst the situation in Venezuela was obviously difficult, there were quite big signs that the Maduro government wanted to change things. And indeed, there were quite serious conversations going on with the Venezuelan opposition hosted by Mexico. So it's not as if there wasn't some changes afoot. The US knew all that, and Starmer knew all that. The Europeans knew all that. And so the sort of strange position of Starmer in saying he supports international law while not able to condemn what is clearly international law breaking, and then makes this very strong declaration in support of Greenland be remaining part of Denmark. But in reality, the grab for Greenland by Trump is totally in line with the national security strategy. It's saying that this is in the Western Hemisphere, therefore we should have it. Clearly wants to have something to show that he's somehow or other managed to expand the USA. That was one of his aims, apparently, in administration. I remember it in his inaugural address about expanding the USA, and nobody really knew what it meant at the time. And we now do know. That could mean they would militarily take over Greenland. It could mean they will just assume Greenland to be part of the USA and leave Europe and Denmark to come to some kind of accommodation with the USA on a fait accompli. I suspect that might well happen. But in reality, it's more appeasing the vanity of Donald Trump as to what he wants, because militarily the USA are already in Greenland and have been ever since the Second World War.
So you were on Sky News with Darren McCaffrey, and he asked you to condemn Maduro. And I feel like it's a mirror of asking everyone to condemn Hamas when we talk about Israeli war crimes. Is this a deliberate tactic to make this about Maduro rather than Trump? Or do you think it's an unconscious bias journalists have in the media, a sort of imperialism mindset, if you will?
I think it's the latter more than anything. It's the mindset that somehow or other we have to condemn people who are in non-European situation or seen to be somehow or other pro or aligned with Russia. It reminds me actually of the many debates that happened in the run-up to the Iraq War. I was accused of being a stooge of Saddam Hussein and all the rest of it. And they then dug around, the people that were accusing me of this, and discovered that I was the one of only, I think, 2 Labour MPs to oppose arms sales to Iraq in 1988 at the time of Halabja, and indeed opposed Britain's participation in the Baghdad arms fair in 1989. So they then kind of quietened down a bit on that. But it was a failure to appreciate that what we're being led to was a disastrous war guided by dishonesty.
I mean, I'm glad you mentioned 2003, because the Bush administration and much of the media manufactured consent for that war. This time, Trump has openly admitted it's about oil. So in a way, are you shocked about how brazen it is and how readily it's being accepted, given, I would say, the minimal propaganda effort? And do you think it's because they no longer feel they need to convince anyone, they can simply act? I mean, you've got Pete Hegseth signaling interest in Cuba, Colombia, Mexico, and of course, Greenland. And I feel like I'm answering my own question here, but I really want to hear your view. Why bother lying when international law seems irrelevant and they have the world's strongest military? I mean, who's going to stop them?
Well, the difference between now and then was in the early 2000s, in the run-up to the Iraq War, and indeed from the Gulf War before that, the US used to try and dress it up in a sort of quasi-diplomatic language, and indeed even went to the UN to defend their positions and produce those unlikely videos. You remember Colin Powell and his unlikely videos of ice cream vans that were apparently hiding weapons of mass destruction and stuff like that. So they tried to dress it up into sort of in some kind of diplomatic process. The national security document and Trump's language and Pete Hegseth's language and Marco Rubio's language are not in any sense legalistic or diplomatic. They just said, we're big, we're powerful, and we don't like a rival on the block, and we want Venezuelan oil. The US doesn't actually need any Venezuelan oil. The amount of oil that Venezuela is exporting at the moment is nothing, tiny amount. Hardly any of it goes to China. Most of it doesn't go anywhere. And the last 2 or 3 loads have been stolen by the USA anyway. And so it is, I guess, about the long-term interests of Chevron and other companies who want to get their hands on this heavy crude oil that's there in Venezuela. I mean, it seems to be playing out that Venezuela is being forced into a position where it is essentially having its oil industry taken under the control of the USA, and the oil that was taken in the tankers, the 2 that were taken, and possibly this 3rd one that's just been ended, shall we say, in the Atlantic, are going to be sold by the US government, the oil in them, either to US or other buyers. And it doesn't say how much. Some of the income from that will go to Venezuela to help the Venezuelan people. Unclear how that's going to play out. So either the administration in Venezuela has made some arrangements in order to try to give itself space and time, or this is the the long-term way forward, that Delcy Rodriguez will remain in office, courtesy of the United States.
Okay, lastly then, does that truly signal the end of international law when it comes to Israel? They are openly admitting their crimes, the US doing the same, and it seems like they have certain countries are so powerful that no amount of condemnation, no amount of arrest warrants or legal procedures through the ICC and the ICJ, these people can seem to get away with it. What do we do as an international community if we can't look to the UN? Where do you end up?
Obviously, those of us that have tried to end the bombardment of Gaza and occupation of the West Bank have centrally always used the issue of international law. And indeed, Israel has been found wanting in every aspect of international law for many years. It's the argument we've consistently used. Since the world apparently is accepting that the US can blatantly breach every aspect of international law, that's the limited amount the US signs up to, then clearly there is a question mark about that whole strategy of the future. So you then descend into a world of increasing armaments, increasing arms expenditure, and increasing conflicts, where you have a sort of militarized armistice between neighboring countries the whole time. Well, this is the sort of peace, so-called, of the 17th and 18th century. It's the Pax Britannica, Pax Italia, it's the Pax de España, it's the Pax Francia around the world. Those were the imperial powers of the time. The imperial powers are now the United States, and the most powerful nations are United States and China, followed by Russia, because of the amount of armaments that they've all developed. And it's a pretty grim future. And so it does mean that the left around the world have got to have some serious thinking about, one is our insularity, and two, our lack of action around the world, which is why I was very pleased that we had this Latin American call last night, which was very important. And the idea is to bring together a unity of people all across Latin America to protest, yes, but also to point out to the USA that the implications of suppose an attack on Colombia or an attack on Cuba have implications in the future, because the general political tide in Latin America, yes, it's moved a bit to the right recently. It could very rapidly move back towards the left. Everyone presents the result of the elections in Chile, for example, as a victory for the far right. Yes, they were. A Pinochet type of politician has become president of Chile. But somebody running as a communist got 4% of the vote, which is actually higher than the vote that Salvador Allende got when he was first elected president in 1970. So nobody should run away with the idea that the left all across Latin America have given up and disappeared. They absolutely have not. And there's now more unity from Mexico down to Chile in a popular sense than there's been for a very long time. And so it's up to us to develop that sense of internationalism. So what we're doing through Peace and Justice Project, allied with Progressive International, which I'm a member of the cabinet of, is to we're holding a big event on Thursday night, a Zoom call through Peace and Justice Project, which will be discussing these issues with voices from across Latin America, as well as people in Europe. So we begin to inform ourselves a bit better about what the reality of is. What the left needs is enthusiasm, ambition, and confidence. We don't get that just by playing parliamentary games. We get that by the activities we can mount outside and on the street. So hats off to all those people that have marched for Palestine over the past 18 months. Hats off to all those people all around the world that have braved all kinds of horror stories just to speak up against the bombardment of Venezuela and the genocide against the people of Palestine.
That was independent MP Jeremy Corbyn. 8:30. I say let's go to our comments and let's bring in our producer, who you've already guessed, it's Sarah. Sarah, let's get you.
Hang on, I Am I not saying anything about that topic? Okay.
We are gonna speak about this as well. But I want to bring in quickly Sarah. Can we hear you?
They're trying to silence me just because I support US imperialism.
Don't say that. Before we go to the comments, though, I do want a quick word from Kevin, though, because obviously you patiently sat there and watched the interview from Rajeza, but I know you want to say something about it. So I want your final word on what the fuck is going on.
Don't get suckered in by the Greenland thing. It's a feint. It's
Really?
it's a magician's trick. It's to do all the illusion around the thing. Look at this, look at this, look at this, and the magician's trick is actually going on down here. That's all that's happening. He's done this before. He brought up Greenland before. He's brought up Canada being the 51st state before. He's mentioned maybe Britain becoming a 51st state. It's nonsense. It's just him allowing himself to blow up a bit of steam whilst also distracting people from the real thing, which is he just did war against Venezuela. That's the thing he's distracting, which itself was a distraction from the fact that he's a paedophile. So it's, games within games.
But I mean, I want to ask you about quickly the inconsistency from European and world leaders when it comes to Venezuela. It's like it's not our favorite thing, or they're like, oh well, we don't, we never thought this government was legitimate anyway. When Finland, they're like, oh my god, we can't do this, and their excuse. And actually, I'm going to ask the same question as Jeremy. Their excuse is because they didn't recognize Maduro and the election, they're more unequivocal. Whereas Greenland, it's all democratic, right? So it's fine. Why is there a difference in inconsistency? Because if you ask me, all right, even if you say, I don't necessarily believe the election results, it doesn't mean that international law can then be bent. It's still kidnapping and bombing, which 80 people were killed.
Yeah, it's nonsense. It's nonsense when you consider the fact that the US government has supported every single unelected government in Venezuela since the turn of the 19th into the 20th century to today. Whereas, of course, this one, which, I mean, it wasn't the cleanest election ever, but he was elected, and his party has been the most popular party in Venezuela for the last 25 plus years because of its track record of nationalization and things like that. And of course, when you realize that the United States supports virtually every dictatorship on the earth, Donald Trump is a massive fan of Saudi Arabia, the journalism murderer government, which has never held a single democratic election in the history of its state, ever, for anything. And yet he's massive friends with them. So this is nonsense. And of course, as you pointed out, the fact that it's been arming and supporting the genocide of the Palestinian people in Gaza for the last 2 years, well, for the last 70 years, but specifically for the last 2 years, shows the idea that they give a damn about international law or human rights or the efficacy of government is nonsense. Absolute bullshit.
Couldn't agree any more. Sarah, how are we?
Yes, great, thank you. Well said, Kev. I fully agree.
As always, though.
Yeah, always. But I don't know, like I've found it quite interesting because obviously a lot of people aren't, fans of Maduro. I am not a fan of Maduro. I will put that out there. But I think you can do both. Like you can say I'm against Maduro, but I'm also against the Americans acting in such an imperialist manner by kidnapping someone in the way that they are. And what I won't accept is being silenced in the way that I describe what's just taken place. Like Trump has kidnapped a president. Like don't like, are you trying to shoot yourself in the foot when it comes to Republicans in the future in the US? I just feel like they've completely dissipated. So I don't know what the future of the US looks like for the Republican Party, but I feel like it's probably 6 feet under at this point. I hope it is, but no.
Fuck.
Oh, is that on their end? Because my look, I say, look, my camera's still in real time. So, oh no, it's their end, yeah, because their chat. I can still see their chat. Their chat's onto the side there, and that's still going through. So,
hello. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. We've lost connection. What's happened to Sarah?
I don't know. Don't know what's happening there. Can people in the normal island chat, can you still hear me saying this?
Oh, well, it seems like that people just disappeared on me. The first show of the year! And we've got both the producer and our guest Kevin. Kevin is back. He's flicking in now. I can hear you. And we've got Sarah back. That was odd. Are we being censored? And we are, I tell you what, we are live streaming on Twitter as well.
I'm scared.
We're back. We're back.
Oh my God,
Apparently your chat could still hear
us.
me. Apparently they could still hear me. I was
Musk
still
is
going.
coming for us. Okay, I'm gonna chill out. I'm not gonna say shit now. I'm actually just gonna be quiet. Let's go to the comments, shall we? So Michael gave £2. Thank you, Michael, for saying
Yes,
£2
Michael.
on Sarah producing. Yes, it's me. And then £2 from James saying Jeremy Beadle on the first time left of the year.
Absolute violation.
That is on his first show back, and you have to bring up the Jeremy Beadle stuff.
Unbelievable.
Insane. But yeah, and then James Holmes also gifted 5 Turn Left memberships. Thank you to James, who also celebrated 24 months of being a member of Turn Left.
Fuck him. Nah,
2 years.
Jay, Jim, you're a cunt, mate. Sharp.
We like Jamie.
Oh goodness. Oh, that hit. Michael said, Michael gifted 1 Turn Left membership. The Good Globalist gifted 10 Turn Left memberships. Thank you so much. Jim, thank you. 5 Turn Left memberships from Jim. Thank you so much. That's super wonderful. Specs legend, also massive congratulations. He'll know what I'm talking about. But yes, 5 Turn Left memberships from Specs. A lot very generous today. And Andrina with 5 Turn Left memberships. Right. And then lots of people became members. I don't know whether to go through that.
Now I'm just getting Beadle harassment in my chat. This is outrageous.
But
just lean into it.
Lean into
We've
it.
got to lean into it, you know.
Kev, sorry, I thought you were going to say something and I was going to actually shout at you. Rachel said US Senator voted to confirm Rubio as
Secretary of State.
Secretary of State, sorry. Yeah. Secretary of State.
Thanks, Bernie. He's a senator, so presumably he counts as one of the every senator, I imagine, right?
I'm very surprised about that, if that's the case. That Bernie would have... I suppose he was thinking, what would the alternative be?
Well, he could just not vote. He doesn't have to vote. He could just go, nah, fuck it, I'm sat on my ass, mate.
No, Bernie Sanders, the women give us the right to vote.
That's very racist.
Why is that racist? That's just a good impression.
Extremely
let's cancel
racist.
Curtis. Yeah, Curtis is cancelled. I'm going to be on Kevin's show next time.
Cancelled, blocked, and reported.
And then Leo gifted £2 and said, remember to license, subscribe, everyone. Like and subscribe. And then I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry. You had a different name before.
Turn Left 2026.
Yeah, 2026. £10. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, let's go to comments. So, I don't think I hearted. Sorry, I don't think I starred quite a few comments. But anyway, Jim said, "Wait, Elon's a wrong'un. When did this come to light?" And that was on the Grok story, because it just feels like he's not, going to take any accountability, nor will he ever take accountability for what's happening on his own site. And then
He's a pretty chill dude, right? Usually.
Well, I'd like to just claim credit for the fact that I was on the fuck Elon Musk train long before everyone else was.
I've always been on that train.
Yeah,
when he was getting glazed by fucking Iron Man and the Big Bang Theory and all this shit. The media loved him.
I didn't like him when he was a liberal. Because I didn't like him because he was a billionaire, you know?
Yeah.
Well, not just that, but he's always been a weird, like...
he has been weird, yeah.
Breeding, kink, fetishist, white supremacist guy for a long time. That's what I meant to interject on you and say, it's not really body shaming when you claim to be part of the master race and you look like that.
True.
If you're going to hold yourself to that standard, I'm going to want genetic superiority, and you don't scream it to me, Elon. You know?
No. I agree.
And then
Good point.
I've never seen like a hateful comment like the one that I'm going to put up, but everyone really jumped on this person and called them out for what they were, which was a homophobe. Mark said, "I've just realised this channel is turned bent. Definitely not for me." Ridiculous. Anyway,
No, to be fair, I'll take that. Yeah, yeah. And what?
I don't think that was an attack. That was that was a compliment.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I
thanks for the comment.
I fucked your dad, and he calls me every day wanting more. What?
It's look, guys. It's dark woke. All right, it's dark woke. Jim says I can change him. Good one.
And this comment was really odd, but Jack said West Midlands police gave in to the Islamists is the truth.
Oh, really? Okay.
So how would you respond to that?
I want Kevin to go on this one.
Fuck yourself.
Well, okay, bit more than that.
You're wrong. Go fuck yourself with a shard of glass. Like what? What? You're obviously incorrect about that. Look, we literally laid out for you the reasons why this was a perfectly reasonable policing decision. Like, I am a person who lives in the West Midlands. My taxes directly pay for the West Midlands Police Force, and I fucking despise them, right? And yet I will give them the credit on this particular occasion. They did the right thing for public order in the city. It's obviously that's the case. Gave in to the Islam. What fucking Islamists? Do I look like an Islamist to you, man? Come on now.
What is an Islamist? Like, I really don't like this mass media outrage that's been going out there about like Islam and like calling people Islamists. Like, what the fuck is that?
It's like when you know when during the sort of 2000s, every old person called every video game console a PlayStation. It's like that with the right wing and Muslims. Every one of them's an Islamist. They don't know what the difference is. If you try to ask them to define what do you mean by Islamist, they would essentially just come down to some sort of word of being a kind of Muslim that speaks out in that.
I mean, that's Jack, look, show me where the big Islam or Muslim lobby is. Show me all the money that's being poured over into this country. Do we have we've got the Conservative Friends of Israel, the Labour Party Friends of Israel. There's a big lobbying industry in favour of Israel. And you're telling me that, the police gave to the Islamists. I mean, just follow the money. Just look at the money. It's not a conspiracy.
Yeah, the Lib Dems have this thing about wanting to have a full-scale investigation into Russian interference in British politics, right? Which I think is perfectly fine and reasonable because there clearly is a lot of dark Russian money sloshing around in the Conservative Party, let's be entirely honest, or indeed in the Reform Party, as we found out with Nathan Gill. But interestingly, the same people who want that investigation don't want the investigation into the much more obvious and nakedly obvious amount of Israeli money that is going into the pockets of British institutions and politicians to do the bidding of the Israeli state. They don't want to have that discussion because they, of course, are the ones taking money from Israel.
Absolutely. And then Edward said the Board of Deputies are unelected and represent nobody but a few unapologetic racists.
No, they represent the Israeli government, so yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Israeli government are apologetic racists, so
yeah.
And then Leo said, I don't know how many more times Kevin can explain how this is so normal in football. I don't know, like football culture is so odd to me. It's one of those things that's just so alien to me. But there was this thing that came out on the news really recently about when someone's favorite team loses, the influx of tweets that go out to attack the men of color on that team goes up exponentially. Like it's the most insane, like skyrocketing, like where they're calling them names, they're making these like AI generated images of them as like monkeys or whatever. Like it's awful.
Yeah, no, it's pretty bad, and there are some really, really negative aspects to it, including the violence, of course, which is relatively casual. But it's one thing for the British police and government and society to deal with their own domestic, violence, as it were. as in the house. Although that's an interesting one about how the domestic violence spikes after England
it
lose
does.
and stuff. It's really grotesque to look at, but even more grotesque not to deal with, as indeed as a society we don't. But it's one thing to say we've got football hooligans in this country that need to be dealt with, and a completely different thing to say, oh, but we should invite more hooligans from elsewhere to come here. And no. If you've got that kind of track record, we don't need you here. We've got a bigger problem as it is. Fuck
and
off.
that's what I find so hypocritical, because when you're trying to argue with the right wing, when you say, look, I mean, you're hyper focusing on immigrants when it comes to crime, and you pull the statistics and you show, well, majority of people per capita are going to be white British, right? Their response back, it's like a talking point. It's like, okay, well, we don't want to bring in more criminals then, regardless of the percentage. They'll say that. Yet, Maccabi Tel Aviv, this isn't just immigration. This isn't just Israelis. It's a very specific football hooligan, you could say organization, actually, who sing rape songs and commit violence. And they're fine with them coming over here. I mean, where are the people on GB News saying, we don't want violent criminals coming over to this country? Oh, by the way, if you're Israeli or you support the state of Israel, you're absolutely fine. Well, these people on the right have zero principles, and they're always inconsistent.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to sort of to mention, but I sort of forgotten why. They couldn't even keep it together for one weekend in order to try and allow the British government to force West Midlands police to allow them to come in. On the very weekend after the British had spent the whole week trying to lie and bullshit their way into forcing the West Midlands police to allow these dickheads in, they had the they had the Tel Aviv derby, and there was rioting, and the Israelis called off that game, essentially banning their own fans from their own stadium in their own city because they couldn't keep it together. They're such violent lunatics.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot, and you want to import that to a city? No. I'm sorry, no. Like, and also, like, even if the people are Islamists, they're not. But even if they are Islamists, that doesn't mean they should feel unsafe because imported foreign people to do violence against them. Because these are still British people at the end of the day. Whether you like them or not, whether you think they follow a religion you like or dislike or whatever, is irrelevant to the matter. They're British citizens and deserve to feel safe in British streets. And they wouldn't have done if you'd allowed these bastards in.
Yep.
Agreed. Conscious of time, so Edward said shaping the discourse, one of the major filters in the propaganda media, that's what the BBC are doing, and that's when you
well, the BBC are an absolute clown show. They've denied a genocide that's obviously a genocide, and a kidnapping that even the kidnapper says it's okay to call a kidnapping.
Actually, it's a fine term.
Actually, we literally are in the not to mention 1984, as Jeremy did earlier as well. But like, we are in that time of like the final commandment of the party was to deny the evidence of your eyes and ears. Like, literally, we can all see it's a kidnapping. There's no reasonable human being on this earth who would not describe what's happened there as a kidnapping, including the very unreasonable piece of shit who did the kidnapping. And yet the BBC's like, don't call that a kidnapping.
Absolutely.
And even when they're referring to annexation, it's like, oh, he wants to acquire the land. Acquire? That's such a polite way of putting it. But the BBC, I think, when it comes to propaganda, their favourite thing to do is imperialism. Like, they're in their element. I mean, they've lost their source on many things over the years. One thing they haven't lost, though, is their defence of imperialism. I mean, that clip we showed earlier of that person's talking about nationalisation, but because Venezuela does it, it's exerting state control. It's just nationalisation. It's fucking insane.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because ultimately the BBC has always been about one thing: establishment.
Yeah.
They've always been of the establishment for the establishment. And the establishment has been imperialist for as long as the BBC has existed, and so is the BBC. Fundamentally, that's what they are.
Absolutely. Two more comments, and one's from Rachel that says they were relieved that Trump chose an experienced politician instead of reality TV star, and they thought he'd be a safe choice. And Jamie, last one, said it's quite worrying that the Republicans don't seem to care about winning future elections. I don't think they
I mean, do they want there to be elections? Though?
I was about to say, yeah,
Trump's going to be
I
trying to
don't
get a
think they'd
third
want one.
term.
Why try and win an election that isn't going to happen? They don't care. It's
Exactly.
not. You know.
And actually, what was very interesting is Trump said, I think he said it yesterday. He says, we've got to go out and win the midterms. If we don't win the midterms, the Democrats, they're going to impeach me. I'm like, he knows that he's a fucking criminal.
Yeah.
And he knows that, oh shit, like, we got to make sure that we have all Republican representatives because we had to account. The big miscalculation Trump has there, though, is that even if there's a big blue wave again in the midterms, he's not going to be impeached because the Democrats don't do shit. He's counting on the fact that Democrats have a backbone and do things when they don't. The problem, Republicans do shit. Real fucking fascist Nazi stuff, but they do shit. Democrats do nothing. They're like, oh yeah, it would be good if we could do something, but we can't. So he's in no danger of being impeached, and he's no danger facing justice for his crimes and can be put behind bars because no one's going to do anything about it.
No, I'm sure John Fetterman is definitely going to impeach him.
Oh, of course, yeah, John Fetterman, who now has talked up Greenland, saying, "Oh, actually, maybe we could acquire Greenland peacefully. Though we'll pay for it."
Or maybe
supposed to be a progressive Democrat politician, John Fetterman, who is anything but, of course.
Well, maybe he can have a second stroke to cancel out the first one.
Maybe he turns back.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it was
Two
Israel
wrongs
that
make a
completely
right.
broke his brain, though. It was Israel that did it.
No, I think it was the stroke. Definitely. Which is more damaging for a person's brain, having a stroke or being a Zionist?
Ooh.
This is debatable, isn't it?
Yeah, debatable. But that's it for. Oh, damn it! I don't know how to get rid of the comment.
You
Oops.
got it. You got it.
Oh.
It's all right. We've had a long
Sweet.
break, you know.
Yeah.
Had a long break.
But that's it for the comments. Thank you so much. What a great bloody first show. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Of course, thank you to our viewers who tuned in. And of course, thank you, Kevin, so much for joining me on our first 2026 show.
It was an honour and a privilege, my sir.
Privilege. Oh, thank you so much. Of course, remember, please to like this stream. And if you're not a subscriber, then hit that button. If you want us to grow, then you can head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There is a link to our Patreon where you can support us monthly, or follow the other link to give us a one-time contribution. Alternatively, you could become a YouTube member for just 99p. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on our first 2026 show, and I'll see you next time.